There is a reason you are here today. This message is meant for you. Have you ever felt different from those around you? Like your path was never meant to follow the same route as everyone else's? Have you encountered obstacles that tested your faith in ways others never seem to experience? Yet deep within, you know there is something greater ahead, something significant that God is preparing for you. What if I told you that your struggles were not random, that every challenge you faced has been part of a divine plan? The truth is, God has a special calling for certain people, and He sets them apart for a purpose. But how can you know if you are one of them? Are there unmistakable signs that show God's hand upon your life? In this video, we will uncover 7 powerful signs that prove you have been chosen by God. These are not mere coincidences. They are evidence that you are part of something greater than yourself. From overcoming relentless trials to witnessing divine provision, these signs will confirm God's plan for you. But before we dive into this powerful message, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. By doing so, you ensure that you never miss out on our faith-filled content designed to uplift and guide you in your walk with God. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll be the first to receive our latest videos. You are here for a purpose, and I promise that by the end of this video, you will see your life from a completely new perspective, with a deep and unwavering sense of purpose that will never fade. Now let's start with the first sign. Number 1, you feel different and have a strong sense of purpose. You cannot accept a life of mere existence. While others may be content with stability, a steady job, and a peaceful home, you feel an unshakable pull towards something greater. There is a yearning within you, a voice whispering that you were made for more. Deep inside, you know that an ordinary life is not for you. This persistent hunger for meaning is not a coincidence. It is a divine call embedded within your soul. It is why you often feel restless, as though something vital is missing, even when everything seems fine on the surface. God has planted this purpose in you even before you were born, as He declared in Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. This means your existence is not random. You were created with a divine mission. Many great figures in the Bible felt this same deep calling. Moses, despite being raised as an Egyptian prince, always felt an inner conflict that set him apart. He could not ignore the suffering of his people, the Israelites. David, though just a shepherd boy, knew he was destined for more than tending sheep. Paul, who once persecuted Christians, was radically transformed and called to spread the gospel. You may have noticed how your thoughts and desires do not align with those of the world. While many chase after material wealth, status, or fleeting pleasures, you seek deeper truths. Your heart longs for something that transcends earthly gains. This inner pull is not a burden. It is a confirmation that you have been chosen for something greater. Even in your childhood, you might have felt different from your peers. Perhaps you were drawn to deeper conversations while others engaged in trivial matters. Maybe you often questioned the meaning of life, felt deeply for those suffering, or had a natural inclination to lead, guide, or encourage others. Those who are marked by God often experience an internal tension between what the world expects and what their spirit yearns for. You may have tried to fit into societal norms, but found that no matter how hard you tried, something was always missing. This is because your true fulfillment comes only from aligning yourself with God's purpose. Have you ever noticed that no matter how much you try to settle into a conventional path, life seems to redirect you elsewhere? Jobs that seem promising somehow don't work out. Relationships that you thought would last forever come to an end, and doors that appeared open suddenly close. This is not misfortune. It is divine intervention steering you toward your true calling. The chosen often experience seasons of isolation where they feel misunderstood or disconnected from those around them. This is because God is setting them apart, allowing them to cultivate a unique relationship with Him, free from the distractions of the world. Number 2, you experience many trials in spiritual warfare. Being chosen by God does not mean your life will be easy. In fact, it often means quite the opposite. The enemy recognizes your potential and will do everything possible to stop you before you step fully into your calling. The attacks may come in different forms: discouragement, betrayal, financial hardships, health struggles, or even opposition from those closest to you. This is not mere coincidence. It is spiritual warfare. Joseph's story exemplifies this perfectly. He had visions of greatness, yet he was sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned. To the untrained eye, it seemed like his life was spiraling downward. But in reality, God was orchestrating every hardship to prepare him for a position of power and purpose. Job, a man of great faith, lost everything: his wealth, family, and health. Yet despite his suffering, he remained faithful. In the end, God restored him and blessed him abundantly. This pattern is seen repeatedly in Scripture. Those who are truly called endure great trials, but these trials are merely preparation for something greater. Have you ever wondered why your struggles seem more intense than those around you? Why does it feel like the moment you take a step forward, something tries to push you back? It is because the enemy does not waste time on those who pose no threat. The fact that you are experiencing resistance is proof that you have a powerful destiny. But here's the truth. God never allows you to walk through trials without purpose. Every setback, every loss, every battle is refining you, strengthening your faith, and positioning you for your ultimate assignment. There may be times when you feel completely alone in your struggles, but you are not. The Bible assures us in 1 Peter 5:8-9, "Be sober-minded, be watchful." Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, knowing that your brothers throughout the world are undergoing the same kinds of suffering. The enemy often attacks the mind first, filling it with doubt, fear, and lies that attempt to undermine God's promises for your life. This is why guarding your thoughts is crucial. Ephesians 6:11-12 instructs us to put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Those who are chosen must learn to recognize these battles for what they truly are. Not every setback is merely an accident. Some are direct spiritual attacks meant to derail you. But through prayer, faith, and obedience, you can overcome them. When you begin stepping into your calling, the intensity of your battles may increase. You may find yourself targeted in unexpected ways. Friends may betray you, opportunities may be stripped away, or doubts may creep into your mind. But rather than seeing these as reasons to retreat, understand them as confirmations that you are on the right path. Number 3, you are attacked but never defeated. There have been moments in your life where you felt completely overwhelmed, as if the weight of the world was crushing you. Perhaps you thought about giving up, convinced that you could not take another step. Yet despite everything, you are still here. That is no accident. Isaiah 54:17 reminds us, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." This does not mean weapons won't be formed against you, but it guarantees that they will not succeed in destroying you. The story of Job proves that while Satan may attack, he can never have the final say. Job lost everything, but he refused to curse God. In the end, God restored double what was taken from him. This is the pattern of divine redemption. What the enemy meant for harm, God turns for good. The same is true for you. The hardships you have endured, the betrayals, the failures, the moments of despair, were not designed to break you, but to mold you into someone stronger and wiser. Look at David. Before he became king, he spent years running for his life, hiding in caves, constantly pursued by Saul. But every battle prepared him for leadership. The same applies to you. Your struggles are not signs of defeat, but training grounds for the victories ahead. Have you noticed that despite everything you have faced, you have never been utterly destroyed? You may have been knocked down, but you always get back up. That is the mark of someone who is truly chosen. Romans 8:37 declares, "In all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us." This is your promise. No matter how fierce the storm, you will emerge victorious. If you reflect on your past battles, you will realize that each one has made you stronger, wiser, and more reliant on God. What once seemed like insurmountable obstacles have now become testimonies of God's faithfulness. Number 4, you have a deep hunger for righteousness. In a world that glorifies material success, power, and self-indulgence, you find yourself walking a different path. While many chase after wealth and temporary pleasures, you yearn for something deeper, an unquenchable desire to live in truth and righteousness. This desire is not just an inclination, it is a divine imprint. It sets you apart and often makes you feel out of place in environments where dishonesty and corruption thrive. You struggle to compromise your morals even when it would be easier to do so. David's life exemplifies this hunger for righteousness. Despite his flaws, he continually sought after God's heart. When he sinned, he did not try to justify himself but repented sincerely. This is why he was called a man after God's own heart. Acts 13:22. Unlike the world, which sees righteousness as a burden, you see it as life itself. Matthew 5:6 says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." Your longing for truth and justice is not a weakness. It is a sign that God has marked you. This hunger influences the decisions you make. You avoid dishonest gain, refuse to manipulate situations for personal advantage, and hold yourself accountable to a higher moral standard, even when no one is watching. There are moments when you feel discouraged because standing for righteousness often isolates you. You may lose friendships, face rejection, or miss out on opportunities because you refuse to compromise. Yet your spirit remains steadfast, knowing that the approval of God is greater than the applause of men. You may have noticed how sin affects you differently than it does others. While some can indulge in wrongdoing without a second thought, you feel immediate conviction. This is not a sign of weakness, but of divine sensitivity. When you drift, God pulls you back, ensuring that you do not stay in darkness for long. Psalm 119:9 asks, "How can a young man keep his way pure? By living according to your word." Your commitment to living by God's principles is proof that He has set you apart. This hunger extends beyond personal righteousness. It fuels your desire to see justice in the world. You feel deeply for the oppressed, the marginalized, and those who suffer under injustice. Like Nehemiah, who wept upon hearing about Jerusalem's ruins, your heart is burdened for the brokenness around you. Your calling to righteousness is not just for your benefit, it is meant to lead others. People are drawn to your integrity. They seek your guidance, trust your counsel, and find comfort in your unwavering faith. This is because righteousness, when lived out, becomes a light in a world of darkness. Those with a deep hunger for righteousness often become voices of truth in their communities. You may find yourself standing against social injustices, advocating for the weak, or encouraging those who feel hopeless. Your words and actions inspire others to seek truth and live righteously. You may have experienced moments where choosing righteousness was costly, losing a job because you refused to lie, ending a relationship because it was leading you away from God, or walking away from lucrative deals that required moral compromise. These sacrifices, though painful, confirm that you are living under divine conviction and guidance. Proverbs 11:3 says, "The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity." Those who are anointed live by integrity, knowing that righteousness brings long-term reward, even when short-term struggles arise. Number 5, you witness God's supernatural provision. Those whom God has anointed never walk alone or lack what they need to fulfill their calling. God's provision is not just about material blessings. It is about divine favor, unexpected breakthroughs, and miraculous sustenance. You may have experienced moments where, despite uncertainty, God made a way. Bills were paid when there was no money, doors opened when all seemed shut, and opportunities arose from the most unlikely places. Elijah's story in 1 Kings 17 is a testament to divine provision. During a famine, God commanded ravens to bring him food, and later, He sustained him through a widow's seemingly insufficient supply. This illustrates that when God calls someone, He also equips them. You may recall times when you were in dire need, but just at the right moment, a solution appeared. This was not coincidence. It was God's hand at work. Philippians 4:19 assures us, "My God will meet all your needs according to the riches of His glory in Christ Jesus." Provision does not always come in the way we expect. Sometimes God provides strength instead of escape, endurance instead of instant relief, and wisdom instead of shortcuts. The anointed understand that provision is not just about receiving, but about trusting God in all circumstances. Have you noticed that even in difficult seasons, you have never truly lacked? God has always ensured that you had enough to move forward. The world operates on scarcity, but the kingdom operates on abundance. Jesus feeding the 5,000, John 6:1-14, is a perfect illustration of how God turns little into much. What seemed inadequate, a boy's small lunch, became more than enough to feed a multitude. This is how God works in the lives of those He has called. There may be times when you wonder how you will sustain yourself in your calling, but history has shown that God never calls without providing. The disciples left their professions to follow Jesus, and yet they never lacked anything they truly needed. Provision is not always financial. It can be the right connections, divine wisdom, supernatural peace, or the strength to persevere. Have you ever had a situation where things should not have worked out, yet somehow they did? That is divine provision. Deuteronomy 8:18 reminds us, "Remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." Every skill, talent, and resource you possess is a gift from Him, meant to sustain you in your journey. God's provision is not just about survival, it is about abundance so that you may bless others. Those who are anointed are called to be channels, not reservoirs. What He provides is not just for personal gain, but to uplift those around you. The supernatural nature of God's provision defies logic. When you trust Him fully, you begin to see miracles unfold. Money stretches further, unexpected help arrives, and what seemed like setbacks turn into setups for greater blessings. You may have faced moments of uncertainty, unsure of how things would work out. But looking back, you can see how every need was met. This is the rhythm of divine provision, one that reassures you that God who called you will never abandon you. There are countless testimonies of divine provision, from believers who received jobs they were unqualified for to those who were miraculously healed. God's provision is limitless and extends far beyond financial means. Psalm 37 verse 25 declares, "I have been young and now am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread." This promise reminds us that as long as we walk in righteousness, God will always sustain us. Number 6, you carry the burdens of others. When you see others in pain, you cannot remain indifferent. Your heart feels heavy with the weight of the world's suffering, and you are deeply moved by injustice. Unlike many who turn away or become numb to the struggles around them, you feel a divine responsibility to help, to intercede, and to bring hope where there is despair. Nehemiah's story exemplifies this burden. When he heard that the walls of Jerusalem were in ruins, he wept, fasted, and prayed for days. He did not ignore the suffering of his people. Instead, he felt called to take action. Nehemiah 1:4. His deep concern was not just emotional, it was a spiritual sign that he was chosen for a greater purpose. If you have ever found yourself overwhelmed by the pain of others, feeling as though their struggles are your own, it is a mark of God's calling upon your life. This sensitivity is not a weakness. It is an indicator that you are set apart. You may have noticed that you instinctively gravitate toward those who are hurting. Whether it is the poor, the outcast, or the brokenhearted, you feel compelled to help. This is because your spirit aligns with the heart of Christ, who always had compassion for the lost and suffering. Galatians 6:2 reminds us, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." Your calling is not to live for yourself, but to be a vessel of healing and encouragement for others. There are times when carrying these burdens can feel exhausting. You may wonder why you care so deeply while others seem indifferent. But understand that this weight you carry is divine. God is using you to intercede, to stand in the gap for those who cannot fight for themselves. The chosen ones often experience deep empathy, sometimes to the point where they feel physical or emotional pain on behalf of others. This is part of your spiritual gifting, your ability to discern and sense what others cannot. Have you ever cried for someone else's pain as if it were your own? Have you ever lost sleep because you were thinking about someone else's struggle? These are not coincidences. They are signs that God has given you a heart that mirrors His. You may have already found yourself in situations where you helped others, even when you were struggling yourself. Perhaps you gave when you barely had anything left or comforted someone while you were dealing with your own grief. This is because your purpose is greater than personal comfort. This burden is also a sign that God is preparing you for leadership. Many biblical leaders, from Moses to Jeremiah, felt an overwhelming responsibility for their people, before stepping into their divine assignment. You are being shaped in the same way. You might wonder why God allows you to feel so much. Why does He not let you just live an easy, detached life? The answer is simple. Because He has called you to be a light in the darkness. Isaiah 61:1 declares, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because He has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted." If this verse resonates with you, it is because it describes your very purpose. Your burden for others is not random. It is a divine assignment. God is preparing you to be a voice for the voiceless, a defender of the weak, and a guide for the lost. He is shaping you into someone who will bring restoration and hope. Number 7, God separates you from certain people. One of the clearest signs that you are chosen is that God removes certain people from your life. The relationships you once depended on may suddenly shift. Friends may distance themselves, family members may misunderstand you, and doors to past connections may close without explanation. This can be painful, but it is not punishment, it is preparation. God separates you because He is taking you somewhere that not everyone can go. Moses had to leave Egypt before he could lead Israel to freedom. He was raised in Pharaoh's palace but was called to be a deliverer. For him to step into his destiny, he had to be removed from the familiar. Exodus 2:11-15. Similarly, God will extract you from environments and relationships that hinder your purpose. Have you ever wondered why certain friendships ended, even though nothing seemed wrong? Have you questioned why certain opportunities never worked out? Often, what seems like rejection is actually divine protection. God removes people who cannot go with you to the next level of your calling. John 15:2 says, "Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, He takes away." This means that sometimes separation is necessary for growth. You cannot bear fruit in the wrong soil. There may have been times when you tried to hold on to people that God was removing. You may have tried to fix broken relationships or force connections that were meant to fade. But looking back, you can see that those separations were necessary for your spiritual development. The truth is, not everyone can handle the weight of your calling. Some people would only serve as distractions or obstacles. God sees the future you cannot see, so He removes what will not benefit you in the long run. Have you ever felt alone in your spiritual journey? This is because God sometimes isolates His chosen ones. Jesus often withdrew to lonely places to pray. Luke 5:16. In solitude, God reveals His plans more clearly. You might feel the pain of separation now, but eventually, you will see the wisdom behind it. God does not take anything away without replacing it with something better. New relationships will form, ones that align with your destiny and support your mission. Proverbs 27:17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." God is sending people who will sharpen and strengthen you, but first He must remove those who dull your spirit. Many times you will find that after a season of separation, you emerge stronger, wiser, and more focused. What once felt like loss turns into gain. Romans 8:28 reminds us, "And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." When God removes people, it is not about them, it is about you. It is about where He is leading you and what He is preparing you for. Do not resist the process. Trust that He is positioning you for something greater. Look at the story of Gideon. God told him to reduce his army from 32,000 to just 300. Judges 7:2-7. Why? Because God wanted the victory to be through His power, not human strength. Likewise, God is reducing your circle so that your journey relies on Him alone. Some separations are temporary, while others are permanent. Either way, they serve a purpose. Instead of mourning what was lost, ask God to reveal what He is making room for in your life. As we've explored these 7 signs that reveal God's calling over your life, one thing remains clear. If you have experienced these, you are not alone and you are not forgotten. You are part of a divine plan, and every trial, every separation, and every challenge has been orchestrated for a greater purpose. Which of these signs resonated with you the most? Have you experienced one or more of these in your own life? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your testimony might be the encouragement someone else needs today. If this message spoke to your heart, be sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue bringing faith-based content to uplift and empower believers worldwide. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest teachings and revelations. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. May God's peace abound in your life.